All right, I'm currently on the phone with the guys of Mouthy Baby, so I'm going to go ahead and give them each a chance to introduce themselves.
I'm Joe Borello. I am the keyboardist for Mouthy Baby and occasionally the drummer and percussionist also.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ethan Skelsky. I am one of the two guitar players in Mouthy Baby.
Hey, yeah, also just for Ethan, because he'd be too humble to admit it. Ethan also is kind of the one who got us all together in the first place, a little bit of the impetus behind the band. So I feel like that's worth noting. But this is Isaac Piku. I am our singer and main vocalist.
That's how you pronounce your last name.
Yep.
I was always too afraid to pronounce it.
Yeah, people call me like Pikachu is the typical one, but yeah.
All right, well, to get things started, why don't each of you kind of go around the table and the metaphorical table and take a turn kind of describing how you first came in contact with music and what about it kind of pushed you into wanting to pursue a life with it?
I can start just, yeah, this is Isaac. For me, I think the first place I really started singing was probably church, to be honest. My dad and I were always kind of the dorky people who would like harmonize in the pews. And from there, just was always doing like choir and stuff like that through high school, musicals. And then I actually did more of that in college, did like a cappella music, did musical theater. So that was always more my background, while I always loved rock and roll music and all sorts of different kind of genres. Never had much of a chance to perform it. So that is sort of where this band came in. Really my first foray into actually performing like rock, more contemporary music and stuff like that, which has it's been great.
Ethan, you want to?
Sure. So I grew up in and around music. Neither of my parents play instruments too well, but both had sizable record collections, and with those record collections come even more sizable opinions. So, we grew up listening to all sorts of stuff in the car. My mother is a massive Deadhead, and my first concert at 12 years old was a Grateful Dead concert, which, I was a little bit too young to understand what was going around me, but just old enough to have a hint. But she also, of course, insisted that my brother and I take piano lessons growing up, which I took for 6 years and it didn't quite stick. And then I recall listening to music from my parents that they'd loaded onto my iPod because, at 11, 12 years old, I didn't have much of music taste of my own. And hearing the opening chords to I Can't Explain by The Who, which for whatever reason just like shook something loose in my head. And from there, I was hooked on rock and roll. And it wasn't enough just to kind of like devour band after band, whether it was The Clash, the Ramones, Guns N' Roses, and so on from there. But I also had to kind of learn to play guitar. And so picked up guitar and really grew up, idolizing the legends of that era, the Jimmy Pages, Pete Townsend, Eddie Van Halen, Alex Lifeson, you name it. And that, of course, led me to then start to play in bands, was in and out of bands throughout high school and always had kind of dreamed of having something reliable, but for whatever reason, never really worked out until, one fateful evening, Denzel, the bass player in our band, had just moved to New York. We were catching up, and he told me that his pandemic hobby had been to take up the bass, at which point that kind of catalyzed everything for me. I had a friend who had played with a lot, who was a drummer in our band, Sanat. Isaac, I knew sang and knew he had a lovely voice, having heard him sing at the Archsings in college, and got everyone together. And 2 years of jamming, drinking beer, and casually making fun of each other later, here we are. And it's been a pretty incredible ride. And I'll turn it over to Joe.
Cool.
That was pretty much everything in a nutshell.
That's it. That's the podcast. We're done. Yeah, I got into music in school. Originally, I was at one of those schools where you learn the recorder in third grade. And I was like, I don't want to just play the hot cross buns and stuff. My inclination was always to turn to the back of the book and learn the stuff that we weren't going to get to cover in class. I was like that in really all of the different majors and classes I participated in. And so I turned to the back of the book. I was looking at all these like other notes that we were going to get into. I started, trying to figure out how that worked out for other songs that I knew. And that's really kind of what catalyzed it. But then as that continued, you would learn kind of Hogwarts style in the school I went to. It was, you want to play a brass instrument? Do you want to play a woodwind instrument? Do you want to play a string instrument? or do you want to play a percussion instrument? And so I was pretty solid at both woodwind and percussion. Ended up picking percussion, very Harry Potter style. It's like, I'm going to choose the house that I want to go into. And so I stuck with that. I stuck with percussion. Started learning piano because that's part of the percussion family. And a private instructor actually challenged me to do that at one point early on in like 4th or 5th grade, to say, well, if you're going to be a percussionist, you better learn the piano also. And that's really, I've stuck with that. I've stuck with percussion and drums, and tried to maintain a little bit of connection to the woodwind family also during that time. And so, 20 years later, here I am still doing all.
Okay. Well, you guys kind of went through all of the questions that I would have asked. So let's kind of pivot a little and let's get a little bit more kind of experimental with the process. How do you guys think interacting as a musician has impacted the way that you've made choices in your life?
I can answer that one first, take a crack at it. I mean, anybody who knows me well knows that I'm an abuser of metaphors and similes. And I feel like music is one of these big domains where, sometimes it gets overhyped. We use a lot of these notions of like playing together and jamming and feeding off of one another. And, like the corporate world has taken some of this stuff and made it its own. But it really is true, I think, to the idea of playing off of other people who are kind of all working towards the same goal with you. And really, when you lock in, I have a lot of background playing jazz music and improvisation. And when you're really locked in on something like that, you can feel it. And I think the audience can feel it also. And so I think, that just trains you to be more aware of when that happens in other situations also.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to go at that one?
I think for my side of things, definitely, I think where I've always gravitated is I like performing. Again, when you think of something like musical theater or something like that, you probably think of people being loud and doing jazz hands and stuff like that and trying to like work the crowd or whatever. And for me, that is the stuff that I was into. Like, I think that it is fun. I think that the relationship that like a performer and somebody on stage has with the audience watching them is an electric and unique experience. And that's something that I really craved. And so for me, with the original question, right, is like, how did that change how I approached my life? I guess for me, I've wanted to approach my life in a way that music and performing can be a part of it, in that it can be something in the same way that like an extrovert, right, gets their energy from socializing. Well, that kind of stuff gives me energy. And that's one of the things that was so challenging for me, is when I never wanted music to like, I had originally not been thinking like music is going to always be my profession, my career, right? Like I studied history in college. But when I left college and I didn't have those same sort of like outlets immediately available, it was definitely something distinctly missing from my life. And it just felt like, whether or not it was my main thing, it was something that I wanted to be there. So that for me has been what's been so wonderful about this experience and being in the band with the guys, is it's just like it's bringing back that piece that I'd been missing for a little while, and I'd been sad about missing. So
nice. All right.
I think just to, I guess, Ethan speaking here, just to kind of jump off of Isaac's point and explain a little bit about how music has impacted my life. I do think that more than anything, it is about that connection. And to Joe's point as well, it's not just the connection between everyone playing together or the connection with the audience, but really it's the connection with people you meet and people who you share music with. It's always been something in my life that's been a vehicle for me to make friends, to get to know people, is to, introduce them to some music I like, or hear about some of the music that they like, to go to concerts together, talk about shows, talk about playing, talk about bands we don't like, and things like that. And I think that once we've got this band started and really turbocharged that, it's really opened up a whole lot of avenues for me to maintain relationships and develop relationships with people. And now you have I have coworkers of all of the jobs I've worked at that have come to our shows, and continue to come because they genuinely enjoy the way that we sound and genuinely enjoy hearing our music, and kind of crossing that line from being, supportive friends, supportive colleagues, to fans of the band. And that's been really special to me. If you go on our social media, you'll see some promotional materials where we joke about some of the reactions we got to the first show, where we had friends and loved ones coming up to us and going, "Oh, we thought you guys would be not so good, but actually you weren't bad. Like you were pretty good." And so to kind of be able to get that surprise, and get that, and then have people not just enjoy the show, but that immediately after we get off stage say, "Okay, when's the next one?" That to me is really special.
Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit more complicated. What do you think is your major obstacle in overcoming your current plateau skill of your instrument?
Scheduling conflict.
Yeah, I was going to say, the biggest thing is, again, for all of us, this is not our day job. So it's like finding that time, both where we can consistently practice and make this the priority that I do think we all want it to be. But for life reasons can often be challenging to have it as such. So yeah, 100%. Yeah. We just have stuff going on.
I think time is always the thing. I've never made music my primary profession, but I've had the chance to do some studio recordings and play with some pretty legit people in the New York City scene. And there's definitely a degree of a gulf when somebody's doing it professionally and 8, 10, 12 hours a day, just refining the craft, practicing even the rudiments, especially as a keyboard player. I've definitely neglected playing scales more often than I should, and I even though I know getting really good at scales lets you absolutely shred on keyboard. It's definitely, that's the more boring stuff. Everybody wants to just jump in and play songs, and I think with limited time it just makes it even harder. But I think the thing I like about this group is everybody does want to get better. Everybody wants to strive to be a better musician, and I think that's awesome.
I agree with all of that. I think time is definitely a constraint. And I think, at least for me, even finding a direction of where to go next, so that it's maybe not just the technical skills, but particularly picking individual bits of music theory and things to learn, and kind of being able to take something that, okay, I'm soloing on the song, but what am I playing here? And being able to take that from, your guitar player basics to something that sounds a little bit more interesting and distinct is really, I think, where I have the next direction to go. But to Isaac and to Joe's point as well, what's really exciting about the band is there really is that shared desire to push ourselves and push each other and continue to get better and better. I think we all have the aspiration to be the best band in New York City, if not the whole world someday. If not tomorrow.
All right. Well, you each kind of referenced the band, so let's talk about the band. Where are you guys at? Do you have any material out? Are you recording material? Are you doing shows? What kind of phase in the release process are you?
Yeah, so we have a show this Thursday. I don't know when this is releasing. Cutting Room, Thursday night. Be there. It's gonna be great. But
this Thursday is September 21st. We go on at 9 p.m.
That is a good point to time frame it.
Yeah,
good call.
And we also have a show, because I suspect this will be released afterwards, at Brooklyn Music Kitchen on November 4th. And that'll be at, we're going at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. we're going on?
Yeah.
Sometime around then. But we've got a couple of other really great bands that we've played with before that'll also be playing with us and opening for us that night. But I'll, go back to Isaac.
So I guess that we are in the we do shows phase. And what's been awesome is consistently every single venue that we've done, we've gotten, great turnout. We all have a lot of people that want to come, and they seem to want to come again. And so we've gotten to progressively bigger and bigger venues every single show, which has been really exciting. So I'd say the next stage for us, and please guys chime in if you think differently, is we are continuing to perform, continuing to get to higher profile venues as we can. And then beyond that, we want to have something to record. We want to have either an EP, an album, whichever. So like we're building out, because we were born as a cover band, but our ambitions are beyond cover band. So we've got what, 4 originals right now, and
three official, four. A fourth one is like basically there. I got to go find the lyrics to it.
And I've got a fifth that's in progress as well. But yeah, I mean, to Isaac's point, we do have ambitions to record. We have a couple of original songs, and we've been at a cadence of about one new song per show. I think it's always a challenge to balance making sure we sound sharp for the show, with introducing and writing and refining new material. But I think the plan now is we're hoping to kind of get all of these songs that we've recorded and songs that you'll hear when you come play us, or you'll hear us play when you come see us, we'll try to get those recorded towards the end of this year or the beginning of next year. We want to get an EP, if not a full LP, and just really look to kind of have that music accessible in a way that is otherwise not, and you have to come see us.
So why don't each of you take a turn just sharing a quick memory about an event that happened to you surrounding music, whether it was, when you guys all got together, or a show that you went to, or writing a song, just a quick memory that kind of stands out to you guys.
Want me to go first? All right. They're telling me to go first, even though I've got the ace in the hole. So I recorded, I played on an album in, I want to say 2009, 2010 is when it was recorded, and it went on to win the Best Children's Grammy Award at the 2010 Grammys. And so that was with Pete Seeger as the featured artist. He actually lives in the town I grew up in, Beacon, and performed a lot at the schools there. My dad was one of the elementary school principals. It was recorded actually at a home studio of another local musician who I played several shows with in the past. And so it was this whole kind of like basically a family affair where the album was getting put together with kids at the elementary schools, and the artist who was basically doing all of the recording came to me and said, "Do you want to come and play drums on a few tracks?" And so I did that, recorded it, didn't really think much of it. And then I guess a little under a year later, we found out it won the Grammy for Best Children's Album. So that was pretty cool. Definitely a wild story. That's going to now ruin my fun fact for icebreakers from now on, because everybody will have heard this on the podcast. But yeah, no, that's my little musical ace in the hole is Grammy-winning artist. I don't have the Grammy in my house. That went to Pete Seeger, and I believe his son now has it.
You got to hit up Pete. I feel like it'll mean more to hit up his son. I feel like it'll mean more to you, like to have. But
look, you guys keep saying his son as if Bob Seger is a famous musician in his own right. It's like, yeah, what could he be up to? The band wrote Night Moves. He's got a lot going on.
My apologies to Bob Seger. Yeah. I can jump in quick. Again, this is Isaac Bogos. I mentioned I did acapella music in college, and one of the cool things about my group, shout out Princeton Tiger Tones, they're the best, is we got to travel a lot and do tours and stuff like that. So turns out people all over the world like to watch dorky looking guys in blazers snap and sing acapella music. So that's great. So like my freshman year of college, and I had only been on campus, we took it for like a couple of weeks. We took a tour to China, and so we visited the Great Wall of China. I'd never been there, and again, because we're a bunch of idiots, we were like, yeah, we should definitely record up here. That seems like the move. So we recorded. There's a video of me on YouTube actually singing, me and Julio down by the schoolyard on the Great Wall of China. And, like the people, I think at first the people were a little bit just like, okay, you guys are taking up a lot of space, but the crowd continued to build. And like, you could tell once they realized that we actually like knew how to sing and make good music, they were getting into it. So that was just really cool. Like one of the things, like, when else am I going to be here? When else am I going to get to do something kind of weird like this? So yeah.
The Princeton Tiger Tones?
Princeton Tiger Tones, shout out. They're on Spotify. Go listen to their stuff.
I found the video. I'll make sure I'll tag it when I.
Oh my god! That was quick. This was a huge mistake. Okay.
So I got one, and thankfully the video I'm about to mention is not as easily doxable But when I was end of middle school, beginning of high school, I think I did like a 2 weeks like School of Rock boot camp, and it ended with a performance to the parents. And so every they like split everyone up into little bands, and everyone played like their cover song, and they played their original song. And it was maybe 20 of us. And then at the end of it, we got all the kids together and did an unrehearsed rendition of American Idiot by Green Day. And I have untagged myself in this video on Facebook. You cannot find it except by going through the original poster, whose name I will not share for obvious reasons.
A little known man named Bob Seger.
Yeah, I'll find that one too. Don't worry about that. All right.
But it's pretty bad, and I am front and center.
Awesome. Well, so where can people find you guys and follow your shows that you're playing, and then your releases when you get them out? Where can they check you?
Check us out on Instagram. We are Mouthy Baby. Mouthy_baby is our Instagram handle. So we post all of our shows to there. That's it for now. But we were trying to get a Bandcamp set up once we have this album recorded. And I suspect you'll be able to find us there in the future. But for now, at Mouthy_baby on Instagram is your golden source for all things Mouthy Baby. If you don't hear it there, it is not true.
All right. Well, why don't you each take a turn just sharing a life lesson? What's something you each resonate that you feel somebody should hear?
I'll start. I think my big life lesson is it's never too late to get involved in this. Music is something that you can keep with you your whole life, and so you can be a little third grader like I was learning a recorder, or you can be a 31-year-old like I am now learning recorder, or you can be even older than that. You can be Pete Seeger, who at the age of 93 recorded that album with us. It's never too late to play music, and it's never too late to get involved in it.
Should the life lesson be like music related or just in general, or?
It's in general. Doesn't have to be music related.
Again, I feel like I'm just really outing myself as the dorky guy in the group. This is one of my favorite fantasy novels. There's this banger line where the dude's like, what's the most important step that you can take? It's not the first one, it's the next one. And the idea being just like, as long as you keep your feet moving in the right direction, right? Like every step can be hard and have its own challenges. And it's up to you to just try to take that next step. So I feel like that's really applicable to just about anything in your entire life, and how I kind of try to approach my life. Going through some stuff, well, all right, just got to take that next step in front.
All right.
And take us away.
Yeah, and I think for me, the lesson I'd like to convey is just to keep an open mind. Try anything twice. If something doesn't seem like it's going to be your thing, give it a chance. You never know. A hero of mine is Anthony Bourdain, who famously would put pretty much anything into his body on television. And he, managed to make a pretty great career out of it, but also I think was able to show people a lot of the world that they maybe wouldn't have seen, and all of its kind of unglossy, unvarnished truth. And I think that by keeping an open mind, you open yourself up to maybe being able to see those things, experience those things, and grow as a person. Something I always try to do, but I know that I don't always live up to that ideal. But do as I say, not as I do.